What's up, guys? So I have a special guest with me today. So one of my clients in permanent makeup, her daughter is actually an entrepreneur student. And what'd you say, SMU in Texas?
Yes, correct.
Cool. And she had some questions for me for a class project. She's interviewing different entrepreneurs. And when I saw these questions, I was like, hey, these are a lot of questions that would help new business owners and a lot of people that I even work with. And so I think it's going to be some great content. And so I'll let you take it away and ask your questions and do your interview.
Great, thank you. So just tell me about yourself and your business and how you came up with this and how you differentiated yourself from your competition.
Cool. So yeah, I have a little bit different story than a typical entrepreneur. I went to college for criminal justice, and then after college, I joined the Air Force and became an Air Force pilot, which I still am. And so this about 3 years into my Air Force career, I was flying every day, and then my boss, my flight commander, he it was a sad story, but he ended up having he was flying one day, and then he like passed out, and he went to the doctor. Come to find out, he had brain cancer, and so in a split second, he lost his flying career just like that. And so, kind of shook me as a young pilot. I'm like, wow, I need a backup. And so I was like, okay, what are some side hustles that I can do to enjoy? And long story short, I got into advertising. I found some courses online. I looked at like Facebook advertising, Instagram, because that was the up and coming thing back then. And then basically, Um, I started helping different people. It really started with my aunt. She was a permanent makeup artist, like your mom does. And
Mhm.
we were sitting at Easter lunch, and I said, "Hey, I'm doing this marketing thing right now. I know you have a business." And she was like, "Oh yeah, I've shared on Facebook a few times." And I was like, "All right, let me handle it, and I'll try it." And so, like within 2 months, she went from being like booked 2 days a week to being booked out like 5 or 6 days a week. And so, ever since then, I've been working with her. That was like 4 years ago. She's been doing great, amazing, and then basically I networked from there. Got on Facebook groups, and my business kind of blew up. It's a really cool niche, and I would probably consider myself the top marketer in the niche around the world. And so I'm very happy with that. What was the second part of the question?
So, how did you come up with your business plan and did you use it to differentiate yourself?
So as far as a business plan goes, I never had necessarily a formal business plan, but I did have guidance from mentors, and that's one thing I want to, kind of emphasize on this is you don't have to reinvent the wheel when you do stuff. I mean, like in most things, people have already done it or some variation, and so try to learn from people. As you see behind me, I have a lot of books. I love to learn. I love to watch online courses. I love to watch YouTube.
Mhm.
I love podcasts, and so don't try to do everything yourself necessarily when it comes to like coming up with your own ideas. And I mean, obviously, you want to have some of your own ideas, but as far as a business plan goes, I used kind of a variation of something I learned on an online course, and he showed how to do like a full social media management agency. And then I learned that, I tried that, and I realized quickly that I really enjoyed the advertising part. And so I kind of started with his plan, and then I really just developed it into my own thing. And then as I grew and as I got more clients and learned different systems, because that's honestly a huge thing when it comes to business is systems. Because
Mhm.
if you try to wing everything, which you are going to wing everything at first to a certain extent, but if you keep doing that, you're going to get crushed. You have to have systems. That way, you can like hire assistants.
Mhm.
You can really develop a plan and
Yeah.
a strategy that you can use throughout your like day to day ops.
So you wouldn't think that business plans are necessarily crucial for entrepreneurship in your business.
I don't I don't think a business plan in the sense that a lot of people think are crucial. I think a lot of people get hung up on it. It's kind of like logos or colors and like business names. Like people get
Yeah.
hung up on that stuff if they're kind of inexperienced. They think like, oh, this is so important. The thing is, it's probably going to change, and so have a good idea of what you're going to do. Have a good plan, but realize that you're going to change. I think it's Muhammad Ali that said everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth, and that's really what
Yeah.
entrepreneurship. That's basically what entrepreneurship is.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. So do you have any three pieces of advice that you can offer for developing entrepreneurs?
Let's see, three pieces of advice. I would say one, keep a flexible. I would say, like I know this sounds cheesy, but attitude is very important because adversity is going to come. Like when you're an entrepreneur, you're really on your own. It's not like you're not taking a salary. You're not in a very safe position in a lot of times, and so it's high risk, which means it can be very stressful. You can, everything's on you. Everything is your fault. You can't blame others anymore. Everything is on you, and so you have to realize that. And every time something goes wrong, you have to take it with a grain of salt and say like, okay, something went wrong, but how can I improve it? It's kind of like when I was training student pilots in the military. It's like they're going to make mistakes. I'm going to keep them from killing themselves, hopefully, as the
Mhm.
instructor pilot. And then we're
Yeah.
going to sit down and we're going to debrief and say, like, okay, what did we do wrong and how can we improve? And then how can we, like, develop, systems and patterns and habits to fix that in the future? So staying flexible is key and learning from your mistakes without being too hard on yourself. I would say number two would be, let's see what I got. I would say stay humble, especially when you start seeing success. It's easy to think like, especially in a great economy like the past few years, it's easy to think like, oh, I'm doing great. I'm hot stuff and everything, but things can happen really quickly that humble you. So
Mhm.
when I say stay humble, like always stay hungry. Try to always. I think Mark Cuban said always pretend like someone's trying to put you out of business 24/7 because that's probably the case. Someone's always
Yeah.
coming after you, and then not only that, if you don't believe in competition, just like always being the best that you can be. I know I've had phases where I've like worked 18-hour days for like a year straight, and then I've had some phases where I felt a little burnout, I felt uninspired, and I didn't get as hungry because I had seen some success. And so finding a way to
Yeah.
constantly remotivate yourself to stay hungry is key. Like, I mean, to be honest, like when I moved here to Alaska, I was like kind of distracted with like, and I moved here like 6 months ago. I was a little bit distracted with like going hiking and stuff like that. And then, recently I got a punch in the mouth by Facebook. They shut down like half of my accounts. They disabled some of my personal profiles. I had to create like backups. I had to use my brother's for a second. Like it was pretty scary because I didn't know if it was going to come back or not. And so that's my whole business. And so that was very humbling for me, and it kind of got me back on track to be like, okay, I don't need to take my business for granted. I don't need to, ever, get lazy. I need to always stay hungry. And I
Mhm.
would say, I mean, that kind of goes into number three is never get comfortable.
Yeah.
Because like all the reasons I said, if you get comfortable, then someone's coming after you. Someone's going to do something better than you're doing because business and entrepreneurship can be summed up as you're providing some kind of value to something for an exchange of usually their money. And so you have to give them a good reason to hand away their money. And you don't want it to be a trick. You want it to be something that's truly valuable, truly helpful, and that way you can get repeat clients and people who continue to feel good about using your product or services. And so
Mhm.
always try to figure out new ways to provide value. I think that's one of the reasons or one of the ways I really set myself apart is I'm always looking for new ways to like change things up, mix things up, or like, provide my clients the extra advantage they need in the business empire because, like, especially like where your mom's from, California, there's in the
Mhm.
industry we're in, permanent makeup, there's always new permanent makeup artists popping up everywhere. So you got to find a way to really differentiate yourself and stand out in a crowded environment, or you'll go out of business if you're not always adapting.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you so much for answering those questions. They were all very interesting to hear about, and to hear everybody else's opinions is always a very good learning point and good to go from there too.
Cool. Do you have any other questions?
I think we went through all of them, just the business plan ones and then the advice. So, pretty fast.
Cool. Well, I'd love to hear like what are some of the other viewpoints when you've interviewed other entrepreneurs. What viewpoints did they have on business plans?
So I actually interviewed my dad last week on his business, and when he was innovating with his business, he had no idea but knew that he had to be competitive and fierce to differentiate himself from the other competitors. Most people, I mean, even throughout the class, most entrepreneurs also agree that they don't really know what a business plan is. I think that's more of like a
Hmm.
formal new age thing. But they know that they have to differentiate themselves in the competition to spark that initial um, initial flow of customers and attention that it deserves. So throughout the class, we've just learned that we need to definitely define what's setting us apart from the other competition. And like you said, there's people have definitely done this before. How are you going to make yourself different?
Yep.
So, yeah, but the only other entrepreneur that I've interviewed so far is my dad. So he also agreed that it's something that every entrepreneur will probably differentiate on. They'll have different opinions on, but they typically all have the same understanding that you have to be competitive and understand that you're going to have to set yourself apart from the competition.
Yep. And I would say like another thing I thought about for business plans are I would say the biggest mistake I see in business plans are not having a strategy for, or I guess basically not having their money sorted out. So I see a lot of people who they'll spend all their money on like to train and learn a new skill, and to like open up their shop, and maybe like they have to pay rent and pay bills and pay all that stuff, and then they forget to save money for marketing. And so now they have all this stuff, they have all these skills, but they don't know how to market themselves. They can't afford to pay me, or someone like me, like an advertiser. And so when you're doing your business plan, make sure you have money allocated for everything, and make sure you have a good, financial strategy.
Yeah, so we actually, that's a part of where this whole project that we're working on right now. So at the beginning of the course, we were assigned to come up with an idea and market it and then come up with a whole business plan. And part of that was the financials, to go through each cost that you were going to have, everything that you could think of that you were going to have, and what money you can allocate to each area. So we've actually gone through that and had a very thorough financial plan too.
Awesome. Well,
Yeah.
sounds like a cool class. I
Yeah.
wish you the best of luck in it.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your time.